So as a preface, we're using brand new technology that Herb has provided us tonight in terms of a conference mic. So I hope that that will help people on Zoom to be able to hear people asking questions and so on a little bit better. So welcome to the May meeting of the Photography Club. Okay, I don't think we have any guests tonight, so we'll skip through that. Does anybody have any awards or photos they're showing or sale or anything that they would like to mention?
They sold one.
Great. What was it a photo of?
Sea turtles.
Excellent.
At the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it. Very
Yeah,
nice.
the first day I put it up, somebody came over and bought it.
Terrific.
Is that a pretty reliable, I mean, do a lot of you sell through the hospital or? Has that
We
been
used
a,
to. After,
I have.
we used to put
have
stuff
you,
up.
Chris? Cool.
Yeah, they change it about once every 4 months or so. The Pagosa Arts Initiative puts out a call for artists. And I have it in because Jody Scarpa, whose husband also does photography,
Yep.
sends me an email and says, because she's the one in charge of putting up the wall, because she sends me a work email. telling me what's happening, so.
He-
That's great.
Yeah, wonderful. What about at the,
Film festival.
yeah, the film festival? How many folks sold pieces there?
You know, I never got a final result, but I know that, you know, a lot of those were left from the Three Sisters thing,
Right.
and they did sell close to $1,000 worth there. And I believe most of the remaining photos did sell at the film festival. When I was there late Saturday afternoon, there were a lot of empty spots on the wall, so.
Did somebody chomp on the big Reading bull?
Not that I know of.
Nothing, know
I didn't even know it was gonna be there.
of. Surprise.
It gets around.
Yeah.
And Hired Grounds is doing a thing for, they have a summer art thing fair coming up on their grounds, I think on June 15th. We got an email, I guess they have booths, you can get a 10 by 10, you pay for a 10 by 10 booth to display your stuff, and I think that's.
And this
coming
is
up.
where?
Hired Grounds, coffee.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room there.
They don't have
My
that much
husband got an
space.
email and forwarded it to me, and they're asking for applicants to.
They have another location. They're just sponsoring it, but
Well,
I didn't look that
Probably
closely,
out
but if you go to Higher Grounds website,
10 by 10.
I think there's something that says their art something or their.
Mhm. Cool.
okay, I'll look for that and let people know if I find it. Okay. Well, let's go ahead then. And, now I'll save that for later. So I'm still interested in finding somebody who would volunteer to help out with hospitality. Just bring some bottled water and maybe some cookies or something to the meetings, like in the old days, pre-COVID. And you know, the club will pay for the materials. I just want somebody that's willing to take care of the stuff and bring it on a monthly basis. So if anybody's interested in that, please do let me know. Okay, so upcoming meetings, we did find a speaker for June, and in requesting a speaker to fill in for June, I did have 2 or 3 other people who volunteered to speak later in the year, so I'll be getting back to them. But Joe Sinclair is going to give us a little presentation on tips for photographing flat subjects like paintings or documents and so on and so forth. You know, it's a little trickier than you might expect to get the lighting right and so on and so forth. So he'll be talking to us about that. And then in July, we have the Pagosa weather team. Sean and Arlene will be here, and they'll be giving us their monsoon prediction and talking a little bit about cloud formation and weather patterns that are of interest to us as landscape photographers. Otherwise, we are gonna restart, the Photo Talk and Coffee breakfast get-togethers once a month. And thanks to Chris Roebuck for doing the legwork to, find out a couple of the possibilities for doing this. This month, we're gonna do it on the 30th of May, at 9 o'clock in the morning at, Two Chicks and a Hippie. They have an upstairs area, that we'll be in. And it's just a good opportunity to get together and talk about photographic topics, show a few of your photos, either on your phone or even as a print. We've had people bring prints before. And maybe other topics too, who knows? So that's coming up May 30th. I'm still looking for other ideas for spring and early summer outings. So if you have something in mind that you would like to do, let me know on that. Couple of events locally coming up that have some photographic appeal. On May 11th is the Pagosa paddle. I went to this last year, and it's a great opportunity to practice your action photography, because people will be coming down the river in rafts, paddle boards, kayaks, you name it. People on paddle boards especially, 90% of them flip over, so you have lots of good opportunities. But they still finish the course. That's the impressive part. And you can find out more information and maybe a schedule at friendsoftheuppersanjuanriver.org. But it seemed like, I mean, we went there, I think, in the afternoon, and there were still several races going on, but maybe the morning might be a little bit better.
The one that impresses me the most are the paddle boarders running the river when it's high.
That's
That
what I was
stand-up
talking about,
paddleboard.
yeah, yeah.
And there's that one that, it was on the, front page of the paper a few years ago, that's like a multi-person, 8 people on there or something, 6 people
Wow,
maybe.
on one paddle.
Yeah, on one paddle
Wow.
board.
Anyway,
Sporty.
it's fun to watch, and it is a good chance to practice doing some action photography. And then coming up on June 7th and 8th is the annual Pagosa Car Show, which is a good chance to photograph some old cars and muscle cars and other bright, shiny things. Usually a fun thing to photograph. Our virtual shutter therapy topic this month, thanks to Barbara, is patterns. So you can submit up to 3 of your own photos on this topic on our Facebook page as comments to this post. And that's going on until June 2nd. So do take part in that, and do check out everybody else's photos as
So
they
far,
post
I'm
them.
the only one, so
Yeah.
jump on, everybody.
Okay, our speaker for tonight is Keith Bruno, and he's going to be talking about birds, birding, and conservation photography. I know I had several people in the club who suggested Keith as a speaker, and I'm really interested in getting people to use their photos for more than just, their own personal viewing and their own family and friends. There are a lot of different ways you can use your photos, and helping conservation issues is one of them. So I think he's going to give us a few possibilities for ways that we could do that. I know some of you already do that a lot, so I appreciate that. Anyway, Keith is the Southwest Colorado Community Naturalist for Audubon Rockies. And in that role, he does a lot of environmental education, and as his bio says, he likes to teach about just about anything that gets him outdoors. He also interfaces a lot with the local Wiminuche Audubon chapter, and
And I'm a board member.
a board member of Audubon, local Audubon. So I think the community, as well as Audubon itself, is very fortunate to have Keith here, located here in Pagosa Springs, because he really does a lot for us. And we're gonna, I think, do his presentation off my laptop. So
Is that your Kara shot there?
that's my Caracara from Southern Arizona earlier this year, one of them.
Pretty neat. The primary feathers rolling up in the front. That's a beauty. So. Yeah, I use Daryl's shot there.
That's one,
What's that?
that one's local.
Locally.
That one's local, exactly. Hi, guys. How's it going? I know a good number of you. Hi, Scott. Good to see you come in too late, but I've met some new folks right before the meeting too, or familiar faces that I've met you, but maybe we haven't gotten to really connect that much. So this is fun, new group of people. I do appreciate Andy asking me to do this. We have a great overlap between the Audubon Rockies, well, excuse me, the Wiminuche Audubon Society family and the Photography Club family. So I love that. There's a lot of synergy that happens in this town, and those are certainly two clubs that really support each other in certain veins, and that's great. So I did initially, I was a little bit intimidated. I was like, well, and I'll explain further here in a second, but you know, I don't consider myself on the level of many of you in terms of photographing. So it's I was like, wow, this is, where do I go with this, Andy? And so we kind of bounced back and forth a few times. I do actually use a camera a lot now, but oftentimes it's diagnostic for bird identification, or actually oftentimes when I'm educating youth, it's a great tool when they're struggling to find a bird in their binoculars, and you say, hey, you know, here's a look, and you know, tell me what you see. And that's really nice, having a screen to show them, honestly. So I was very slow in coming around to digital cameras. I did spend time in my college years using a 35 millimeter, you know, camera back in the old days, and developing film in a dark room at college, and I loved that, as I'm sure many of you did, and there was something special about that. And those first digital cameras, obviously, they weren't as good as they are now. And initially I was just kind of a prude about it. And I said, I'm not going to take pictures with those until until they come around, or until I'm willing to kind of come to terms with that disposable quality of the image versus those cherished, you know, cherished images you had on a roll different times. So I did come around to doing that, and I'm so glad I did, because I would be missing out. And obviously things have evolved so much in the last 20 years for photography. So it's really fun to be a part of it now. I am in the hunt for a new camera, so you guys can try and talk me into some things. I've been trying some of Charles Martinez's various cameras, but I haven't chomped on it yet. So yeah, we came around to Andy, and I think found common ground when we decided, okay, let's see how we can, you know, offer you guys some maybe some insights into how you could use your photography for conservation purposes, or maybe more specifically for bird conservation purposes. So I'll do my best. It's not going to be a super long one outside of me talker. So I've got maybe 24 slides, and yeah, there'll probably be some photographs that some of you recognize because you took them, like this one Daryl took for the Christmas bird count 2019. Can't believe it was that long ago. But I do think it was kind of fun. This shot came into my head initially. I was like, that would be a great title slide, because I knew Daryl was involved with the club, but I also knew that, you know, this picture got some press. Not only did the Sun run it in big format, which I thought was great, in color, as good as they can do, but also Audubon Rockies, my employer, which is based out of Fort Collins, liked the image, got it up online, and, you know, really kind of circled it in with Christmas bird count participation stories and blogs. So I thought that was cool, that it kind of led to more people being like, hey, wow, cool, powerful image, commanding image, you know, maybe that, you know, that's enough sometimes to make that person go and click on that digital button. How can I get involved in the Christmas bird count? So that's exactly what we're talking about tonight. Now this is I just found this like a Polaroid image that my friend had taken a long time ago of me on top of Mount Mansfield in Vermont, sometime during college. I don't know when. I don't think there's any date stamping on that particular one. I'll have to look closer at it. But I don't do this often, but I do think it kind of gives a little context specifically to this group, because I really did start my career. Well, it didn't start out as maybe linear as one might think. So as Andy mentioned, I work as a community naturalist, which is a fancy word for really trying to get people educating, but trying to get people excited about natural resources in this community, largely birds, as I work for Audubon, that being a big piece of our mission. But I did start out really with a heavy kind of art background. So in college, really going back to high school, I had a teacher from South Africa who was my painting teacher, and got myself way into painting, screen printing, etc. That carried on into college, and I kind of ended up actually coming out of college with a kind of a split major. I had a major, I had a BA in with a major in studio arts, but I had a cross college minor in wildlife biology and English. So I was writing a lot too at the time, and so I was really spread out. And the funny thing was, my big brother was a big inspiration also. Was a fantastic painter, but also became a stained glass artist. He built stained glass, as well as he was a mason, just fine woodworker, etc. Kind of good at anything he turned his attention to. I was always a little jealous, but he got me into painting and got me into a lot of other art mediums, and so that was really fun. But somewhere in college, I was kind of like, well, it was kind of between arts and forestry. I was really interested in forestry, and so I ended up taking some classes initially and in both, and kind of finding my way through it. But at some point in college, I said, I need to step away from school for a little while and really make sure I'm doing something that's going to benefit my future. And I hiked the Appalachian Trail when I was 21, turned 21 on the trail, and it was a formative experience, as it is for so many other people, any kind of adventure like that. And I came back and I knew I wanted to do wildlife focus. I really had enjoyed all the birds along the trail and the wildlife, the plant life. And so I came back and really kind of dove into ornithology, wetlands, biology courses, and diving into botany classes as well. And so that kind of took me in a direction where, I really launched off after college. I went back to Tennessee, where I grew up, and worked some labor jobs for some construction outfits, and just said, I don't want to do this that much longer. So, but I found my first job on, I think it was through, are you guys familiar with like the Texas A&M Wildlife and Fisheries Job Board? Have you ever heard of that? It's this kind of, it's essentially, it's just that, it's a job board where someone who is interested in their younger years and opportunities far flung all over the country and beyond can look and find these possible jobs. And so I found a job. I ended up in the Gila National Forest in 2003 as I kind of worked west. And that was formative because I fell in love with the Southwest, and I knew I wanted to be in this corner of the world. However, after I left that job, and actually backing up, it's really interesting because that job specifically was, I was doing breeding bird surveys, and then I was doing post-prescribed fire cavity nesting surveys, which is really quite similar to what Herb and I have dove into with our bird monitoring project, which I'll talk more about. So kind of a foreshadow there. I think that's kind of neat. But from New Mexico, I went to California, and I worked all kinds of jobs. I did do a number of wildlife biology jobs. I worked on California spotted owls up in the Sierra Nevada, looking at their use of mature old growth stands after a catastrophic canopy fire. That was really cool. I ended up working also in another post-fire landscape up in the California-Oregon line, looking at rare plant surveys, doing rare plant surveys with Forest Service botanists. And Darlingtonia, California pitcher plants specifically. We were looking at populations, vestige populations of those. And then I worked for Mondavi on vineyards too, actually out in California. That was kind of a fun job. I just wanted to be in the field, so I was kind of all over the place. That overlapped with a little bit of time working at retail at a marmot shop in the Oakland, Berkeley area. And also I spent 2 summers working up in Mount Shasta, if those of you are familiar with that, Northern California, guiding on the mountain. So taking people up and down the snow fields and glaciers there. So that was a lot of fun, but I kept coming back to wanting to work on, you know, these kind of more wildlife centric projects. And 2007-8, I moved to Creed and worked on the Canada lynx reintroduction for the state of Colorado. So that was really fun. And that again fortified kind of my interest in this area. Now, there I was, you know, doing all these kind of field jobs. I then met my wife, who was a farmer at the time, and she got me into farming. And I said, well, this is great. I can just work. We can work for ourselves. Now, it wasn't very lucrative. So we were doing this over in Bayfield, leasing some land and growing organic vegetables. We raised turkeys and pigs for a few years too, but mostly organic vegetables. And so she smartened up, went back and got a teaching credential at Fort Lewis in Durango. And I quickly was like, wow, what am I going to do now? Yeah, I kind of got waylaid into farming for a while. And so I decided that from my times back in Portland, Oregon, lived there for a brief period too, working for the city of Portland 2 years. And some of my favorite opportunities there were doing restoration projects with young students. And so school groups. And so I really kind of found that synergy between education, natural resources to be appealing and maybe a strong suit for me. I wasn't a statistical science mind in the way that Herb is. But I was really good in the field and very savvy with, you know, I had all my wilderness certifications and had spent a lot of time in the backcountry. So I had that going. But the education piece kind of became, more of an appeal for me. And thus, I went back and got my degree with I went back and got a master's with kind of an environmental education certificate through the University of Idaho, and ended up taking the Audubon job. I passed on a job for Durango Nature Studies in Durango without knowing that I got this job with Audubon Rockies. And so it was this like week of like, oh boy, did I make a terrible mistake? You know, I just passed on a job. I had just had a kid. So, you know, time was clicking. And luckily the Audubon job played out and I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. So here we are. I just wanted to share this because I don't know how familiar many of you are with the Audubon network. But if you can think of it this way, this is kind of National Audubon's representation across the country. It also includes chapter networks. So if you can see right here, Colorado, our Audubon Rockies office is right here up in Fort Collins. Yeah, we can use the pointer. There we go. And historically, it was Audubon was divided into Wyoming, Colorado. They had state offices. And so fortunately, before COVID, we aggregated, before I even started, we became Rockies. And so we also included Utah in that. And so now we are a tri-state office, so to speak. And if you can see down right here, that is the Weminuche Audubon chapter that meets here next Wednesday. So yeah, part of the Central Flyway. And this is an older slide, but I kind of wanted to fast forward to now what some of the imagery that National Audubon is using in their new flight plan, which is their new strategic plan. I thought you guys, and don't feel like you need to try and squint and read any of this because it's small. But I do think that, you know, it's neat to think about kind of their more hemispheric approach now. And that's why I wanted to share this. It really, where this new strategic plan is going is realizing that birds are in trouble. Not that we haven't known that, but obviously with the 3 billion birds lost, you know, in the last 50 to 75 years, we're kind of at, you know, at this point where we've got to figure out some communication across borders, you know. And so we really, you know, this has really been relevant in Herb and I's project working on bird monitoring, because a number of the species that we are observing here in the summer, we're starting to realize just how much peril they are experiencing in their journeys from points south to get here and points north. So this map kind of shows some migratory paths. If none of you have used the Migration Explorer tool, which is online, it's a National Audubon tool that's been informed by data collected by other citizen science initiatives, like bird banding, MAPS bird banding, among others, some of the Mosey stations that are collecting data on birds traveling to and fro. Essentially, this is all data driven. So seeing where land birds, where raptors, shorebirds, waterfowl are coming and going to and from is important, obviously, so we can plan accordingly. There's been some really great conversations that have happened with this organization called Conserva Aves down in Central America and into South America. Now in Colombia, we've got some big partners. And so trying to, make sure that we're working together as in this effort, I think is a strong point. And some of the kind of, again, I feel like some of this stuff's a little nebulous right now, like, ooh, the flight plan, Audubon came up with, and I'd sent Daryl way back when, because he was, for his project that he is working on and will continue to work on, I had sent him a kind of a list of indicator species that Audubon came up with in, alignment with some of these new goals, these new milestones and metrics they're trying to meet. And so, a couple of the things I just wanted to mention are, so they've got habitat conservation. Obviously, we just talked about establishing priority geographies. Climate action, of course, is a big piece of it. Renewable energy focus. How can we get renewable energy in the landscape, but also still protect birds? And so there's a lot of motion there. Policy has always been a big piece for Audubon, working with legislatures to produce government action. So that's another big piece. One of my coworkers handles water policy, and she is, in Denver constantly. Right now, she's been working on the wetlands bills, and it looks like those things are starting to look pretty good. Trying to salvage some of the integrity of our wetlands and the future of our wetlands. And then community building, trying to bring more people into the Audubon network. This is certainly not a sales pitch, but if you guys are interested in information from Audubon Rockies, my employer, our newsletter that goes out digitally, I did bring a sign-up sheet. I think I put it on that table behind you guys right over there. So let me know if you're interested. No, here it is. Yeah, I'll just run it over there. Let me know if you guys are interested in information from Audubon. That's one way to kind of know what is happening with wetlands bills, et cetera, things like that, even really locally and regionally. Now, back to what we're here for. Photography and multimedia experiences. How can you guys leverage some of your imagery for powerful change? And many of you already are, just like Andy pointed out early. So I don't want to assume that you're not doing that. It's just, I just want to also provide opportunities for you guys. So that's the why, obviously, is anytime you can get people in the field, it's going to be a powerful experience. But in this day of age, so much content moves through the internet, so much information, and through social media, et cetera, through websites. And we certainly see that at Audubon Rockies, that we benefit from people sharing their imagery, sharing their local stories. And that's a big piece of it for us. And so the more that we can get folks like yourselves who are out on the landscape, taking pictures of birds, of plant life, of pollinators, et cetera, all the better, right? And I'll be sharing with you guys, if you're interested in sharing some of those digital assets, or sharing some of those images, et cetera, or video content. I'll provide you guys with a link where you can send it actually to Alan Gottlieb, who handles digital asset management through Audubon. So kind of exciting stuff. I did want to share, obviously I'm kind of stepping forward, but essentially, everyone can't obviously get to those physical locations. So thus we've got a lot of stuff that really moves online. Andy, if we wanted to share, I wanted to kind of just tour everybody through that golden triangle example, just because I think it's beautiful and, might,
I've got that site up
yeah, I
here.
think that's it right there. Yeah. And then I think would you need to stop sharing your screen on Zoom or can they?
They should still be watching. I'm sharing my whole desktop.
Okay, so it's the whole screen, so then,
yeah,
perfect. Well, that
so-
works even better.
Let
Excellent.
us know out there in Zoom land if you can't see this web page that says Golden Triangle, but I think you should be able to see it.
Wonderful. Okay, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. This is honestly just gone online in the last 2 weeks, I believe. And I wasn't even familiar with this name of this piece of land. This is a piece of sagebrush up in Wyoming. So part of our tri-state region, the Golden Triangle, it's a piece of sagebrush steppe. And yeah, Herb, you're able to see it fine there, huh?
Yeah,
You
he's
can
just
maximize it, though.
reminded me that, yeah,
Make it a little bigger, maybe. Oh, yeah, there you go. Perfect.
if I can get the Tim Zoom menu out of the way.
Yeah, I know. And Evan Barrientos is the person, he's our communications manager up in Fort Collins, and he has, like you guys, a strong skill set with capturing beautiful things, often beautiful things. And so he's really, I mean, he's got a cool job. The guy gets to go out and set up a blind, you know, and spend the night in there and photograph sage grouse leks, you know, like, I mean, that's not what he gets to do every day. A lot of his day to day is unfortunately on the computer and fielding all kinds of requests from us. But he does get to put together these big, beautiful pieces like this to advocate for, you know, these places that are in peril, like the sagebrush steppe. I'm not going to go into the depths of the sagebrush steppe, but I think a lot of you know that obviously habitat degradation, kind of a lack of value for that biome has kind of constantly been this albatross on its back, and cheatgrass has become obviously a big piece of changing the fire regimes on those landscapes. And so, you know, we've continued to see sagebrush kind of disappear. And obviously it's a place that a lot of animals live. So this is a really cool piece. I forget what these, what do you call these kind of ArcGIS story maps? I think he's kind of almost used like a story map here, but this format I think is really appealing. But you can see just kind of, if you're familiar with, here's Lander right here in the cursor, here's the Wind River Range right here. And Sinks Canyon, that kind of state park area is right down below here, but right near there, just southwest there. I did a bike tour right west of there years ago, not knowing I was missing all this beautiful kind of wild sagebrush country. But I just think he did a really good job putting this together, and, you know, really trying to kind of boost and pick up the sagebrush steppe. Give you guys just a minute to read through that if you want to. You can't see it. Okay, well then let's just kind of move through it. I think just for the images more than anything, I think it's beautiful. And these are just landscapes, or nothing that, you know, that the subject matter is wide open vistas, but big skies. And I think that's some of his point here is, I'll just read this place. This is a place where it feels like nature still holds its power. There is nowhere for you to hide from freezing winds or scorching heat. The phrase fear of God comes to mind as you watch a storm pummel a hillside miles away, yet seemingly close enough to touch. Yeah. This is the crown jewel of America's sagebrush sea, North America's largest ecosystem. This is where you can still watch hundreds of sage grouse display and thousands of mule deer migrate. This is Wyoming's Golden Triangle. Maybe some airleaf balsam root, looks like to me. That's a beautiful flower. Yeah, and then he goes into, you know, these fun, I think it's even got a little, yeah, sagebrush thrasher. Pretty cool. So, we got to see a bunch of sage thrashers when we were over in San Luis Valley just 2 weeks ago for the shorebird surveys. Very cool. A pronghorn snorts at you, and you get the feeling that this is a place where animals are still a little surprised to see people. You realize that you are in their home, not yours. And there's another, he's got some great, greater sage grouse, some of the males lecking, their displays are just fantastic, but, yeah, I won't read all this, the rest of this to you guys, but I just wanted to share that to you. When you have time, go online, check it out. I just think it's beautiful. Andy had seen it, right? I think
I
you had
had,
seen her. Yeah.
I can send the link out to these
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, we can circle up on some links and make sure that you can get this to the group, but that one's a fun piece. I'll let you zoom, take me back to Zoom there, sir.
Just hit escape.
But in that situation, and I get it, this is a paid employee through Audubon Rockies, different than, you guys off, how many of you are actually, is photography? I mean, it may be a part of your, I guess your financial portfolio at this point in time, but how many of it would you say is a hobby? How many of you are hobby photographers? Okay, and those, Daryl has certainly built his career around photography, videography, etc. So documentary making. Who else has kind of dabbled in and out of that? Just curious. Okay. So, I realize that I'm sharing something that's, again, that's a coworker who's doing this for work. However, it is his personal interest to get out and, be in a blind at 4 or 5 in the morning to be ready for that. So those are things that are self-driven. And I just think he's done a great job at photographing, places and animals that are less seen and just the power and impact around that. Now, here's a picture that Chris took on our American Dipper nest monitoring project. Chris has taken a bunch of fantastic shots as we've gone about, what's it been, 2 years now that we've been doing this? The Dipper nest monitoring?
I think more than that.
Maybe it's-
Longer than that. I think maybe
I think it's
3.
3 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because we were in that small room in the library years ago when we first started it. I guess
think
that was
the
3.
very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's kind of, this is kind of, here's an example of, a small scale community science project, that being going out, volunteers going out and trying to locate, American Dipper nests and many of the forks and rivers around here and monitoring them, going back to those sites again and again and again and witnessing their behavior. Sometimes you miss out, you don't find a nest, or maybe the nest has been swept out by rising water. But oftentimes once you locate a nest that looks stable and is promising, then you're like, okay, here we go. This is kind of exciting. I'm going to see what happens over the next, month to 2 months. And Chris has been involved in that and has made a point to go out. Most of the nests that you've monitored are on the Piedra River Trail, right? There's two particular nests right there. And, Chris has been great at getting photos to the group. This all goes into Nest Watch, which is a Cornell Lab of Ornithology product. I shouldn't say product, but a platform that essentially monitors bird populations across time. And so the Durango Bird Club is who we got into it with. And they said, hey, would you guys be interested in monitoring dippers over Pagosa country? We said, absolutely, that sounds fun. We've got volunteers who are willing. We've got photographers who are willing. And so thus, a new project was born. And, we're grateful to have folks like Chris getting out there and documenting these particular species. So from here, I wanted to kind of leap into, I know that a lot of you guys have probably various content that you're attracted to, and I think the most important piece here is, if you want to come to me, definitely, I am like, because I asked Evan, I said, what do you think we need in terms of content? How can we kind of boost, not we, but how can people in this community contribute towards some of the content that maybe either Audubon Rockies is doing? He said, well, showcase the projects that are happening in your area, really local stories are always the best stories, the stories that you guys are telling. And I can help elevate those stories through some of our avenues if you're interested in that. Or I can help you find other resources and contacts to the best of my ability. It may not line up like that, and that's fine. But some folks obviously love to photograph, do portraiture, work on photographing people. you know, maybe with an artistic lens there. Some folks really love to get out and photograph landscapes like those big sagebrush vistas we were just looking at. And I know a lot of you also like to photograph wildlife and birds. So, you know, I kind of wanted to just give you guys a couple examples on what to run with here. See, I know this, Andy, this does this to me all the time too.
Yeah, it should
He usually lets you scoot it.
disappear, but
But, you know,
oops.
it's okay. Go back to, here we go, there we go. So, you know, this one was like, for those who are interested in photographing people, you know, I just think that sometimes, there's a shortage of this. Honestly, people really are attracted, at least through our social media avenues, of seeing people out photographing, or observing with their binoculars or with their naked eye, birds and other wildlife in the landscape, conducting community science, because it tells a story, right? Here are a bunch of people who give a damn, right? Who care, and they're out in the landscape, out there inventorying for critters. For example, this group on the bottom left, I think Herb is over on the far left there, and we're out in the middle of some salt flats, some alkaline flats out there where water had receded only a week or two before, maybe more than a week because it wasn't that muddy, but it was still moist. And so we're looking for shorebirds out there. This is in San Luis Lakes State Wildlife Area, right by the sand dunes. So I think that's kind of actually a, you know, I don't know the ultimate quality of the image, but powerful image, I think. Here's some people out scouring the landscape looking for shorebirds. On the right here is Scott Miller, who is the National Wildlife Refuge Manager in San Luis Valley. So he oversees Alamosa National Wildlife Refuge, Monte Vista, and the Baca. And we go now, this last year, we went over April and August, and this year we went already April 2 weeks ago in this August. So if those of you are interested in shorebird surveys, you don't have to be a shorebird expert. Believe me, we are all working on it ourselves. It's not easy, but we're always welcoming people to come and be a part of that because it is a lot of fun. Scott is our tour guide, and this is just a picture I took of him last year as we found a group after not finding shorebirds for a while. He knew where to look, and he found a little shallow body of water, kind of back behind some bulrushes and cattails and other vegetation. And there were a number of long-billed dowitchers and black-necked stilts, 2 black-necked stilts. That was always really cool to find. So there's Scott climbing. He got excited all of a sudden. I just said, I got to document Scott doing this, because he'd said admittedly, you know, I used to love birding, but I don't get to bird that much for my job anymore. You know, I'm running around moving water and fielding all kinds of requests. So he really enjoys going birding with us and you know, just being more intentional with that hobby and adventure with us. And so he just, you know, quickly jumped on top, had the scope, and, you know, we were counting dowitchers and stilts. That was pretty fun. So there's some fun, just kind of storytelling around people being out in the landscape doing community science. This is, and I really should have put the link in here for this story because there's a blog on Audubon Rockies page. Arrow Myers was a high school student when this photograph was taken, and in the San Luis Valley. And I'm not sure who kind of connected with him. He may have been sending photos to Evan to share through our Audubon Rockies photo reels through Instagram, etc., which I would encourage all of you to do if you're interested, and I will point you in the right direction. And you know, here we go. We find this kid who grew up in San Luis Valley. He's in his backyard. Talk about local stories, you know, and he was able, through this blog post, all of a sudden there was really like a lot of attention that kind of was shined on the San Luis Valley and its struggles to figure out, you know, water allocation on the landscape. And here was this, I just thought it was pretty cool. Here's this high school kid getting up, and he has a lot of photos of sandhill cranes. That was oftentimes his subject matter, but he's obviously thinking about more than just that. He's getting to the right place at the right time and documenting the birds with light on them in flight. Beautiful picture, I think. Powerful image that helps, you know, really draw meaningful attention to an area that is struggling to meet ends, right? I mean, they've got agricultural requests for water. They're also trying to keep water in these various national wildlife refuges for duck habitat. That's a big piece of it. Shorebirds, of course, too. So there's a lot going on in San Luis Valley, and I just thought this was kind of a powerful way to use a landscape photograph specific. Obviously, it's got birds as subject matter in the middle too, but largely a big wide vista. These are some photos more recent. Well, let's see. Chris, is this last year?
Oh, yes,
Last year. I mean, definitely not obviously this year. I just couldn't remember if it was last year or years before
and that was on off East Fork Road.
Yeah. Steel bridge, big metal bridge there, yeah. And you know, there's a bridge, I mean, excuse me, a nest that looks like it's gonna be a go underneath the Hot Springs Boulevard right now. I've been on my walks or jogs through there. I've been stopping and watching it for 5 to 10 minutes, and I've seen birds coming and going. They were still adding on to it, building these dipper nests, you know, are built of, you know, moss and sticks and, you know, all kinds of plant matter, and it becomes kind of this hovel of sorts. But it protects them. That first picture you saw of Chris is really, I thought, was a beautiful dome nest, you know, and but sometimes they'll just work with what they got underneath a steel bridge like this. And so here's, you know, again, here's an adult feeding a stonefly to 3 hungry babies. Unfortunately, only one of them is going to get that particular snack. But great picture, Chris. I thought that was a really cool and really with these nestlings with their heads sticking out like that too, just fantastic. The one on the right, and Andy just recognized because it popped up on the Women Who Audubon Facebook page. Barry Knott, many of you know, is Barry part of the photography club? Okay. And Barry has really dove in with photography the last few years and taken a lot of shots. I think he's a little early in it, but he's really having a lot of fun, and he's putting on a lot of content on the Facebook page, which has been really fun, and a lot of really crisp, good images. And he's selective about what he shares. So I thought this was a really cool one. Jack's Pasture, Dunnigan Reservoir, all those water bodies kind of right if you're heading out Piedra Road and you get to where you're on gravel. A lot of people these last few weeks and for the next few weeks, there's a lot of migratory birds moving through, including white-faced ibis. But there's been a lot of shorebirds as well, wading birds and shorebirds with the kind of shallow ends of some of those water bodies. Cool picture, I think, just with the 3 of them all stacked up in the reflection. I like it. That's a neat picture. And, you know, I guess my point with this one is also, you know, I'm trying to encourage Barry to put these things on eBird. You know, I think the same birds were probably documented by Charles Martinez and Jeff Reichel, among other photographers. But if you get these images onto eBird, the neat thing is, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful image always, it can be just a diagnostic image, right? And we'll talk more about eBird, but essentially then you're contributing to ongoing citizen science, community science. I'll use those words interchangeably, so there's nothing different between the two of them. But Cornell Lab of Ornithology, you know, constantly is inputting all this data from all over the world. Now it's global. And, you know, basically if you're putting something like, oh, well, there were ibis here at Dunnigan Reservoir or at, you know, Jack's Pasture area last week, they can look at it over time and see, okay, when is a species arriving and when are they departing and how does that change over time? You're actually feeding, you know, some of these kind of population biologists understanding. Now, I wanted to show you guys a couple of resources, and maybe this is best done. Andy, I'll let you also
You want to
manage
go back to
this.
the browser?
Yeah, if you don't mind. You know, I did not know these resources existed within the archives of National Audubon, but Evan, again, Barrientos, was able to point me in the direction of some of these when I asked him some questions. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is maybe moot to you guys because you're advanced. A lot of you have been doing this a long time, but some of you may be curious to dive in. So this one is, and I'll provide the URLs later, but essentially this is just a landing page for photography and videography. You know, there's tips and how-tos over here. There's some gear recommendations. And with that, I'll mention obviously audio. You know, I know Daryl, you use a Rode mic, I'm guessing, right? And
Yeah.
probably many of you do with audio. I don't know how many of you like to collect audio, but that's also something that Audubon is particularly interested in, is audio of birds as well. So I don't want to rule that out when I talk about photography. I guess that's included in videography, but and we'll talk a little bit more about ethics, but there's also, you know, just fun eye candy here. If you click on, you know, Audubon Photography Awards, you can kind of scroll through, you know, some of the entries. And then there's all kinds of fun kind of redirections at the bottom, right? There's photo contests, there's frequently asked questions, etc. Well, we're going to look at some of these other spots too. So cool stuff right there. And that one's just the landing photography and videography page. Then we've got, you know, this is just a guide to ethical bird photography and videography. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I've got some sides specifically set out for that because I know that's maybe something that's interesting to you guys. And should be, you know, and so here's some fun tips right here. Maybe not fun tips, but some tips to read through and, you know, maybe question yourself, whether are you doing things that are ethical when you're out in the landscape photographing birds. I know that we've all had moments where we probably were like, ooh, I got too close to that bird nest, or, you know, could I have not flushed that bird from the power pole when I was trying to photograph it, right? Something I've been guilty of myself multiple times. Even when we were in San Luis Valley, we pull up right below one of those Swainson's hawks, and we, you know, we Barry was photographing it in the car we're in, and ultimately it leaves, you know. You're then changing its behavior. So it's something you need to kind of ask yourself, what is the point to which you disturb a bird or not, right? So all kinds of images. We're going to talk more about that stuff, but here's a great landing page. This one is fun. This is this image was great. Burrowing owls in a suburban neighborhood. I think in, where's it say, Florida?
Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, Diane recognized that. That's a pretty cool one. But yeah, this is, you know, the magazine, Audubon magazine has gotten a lot of awards these last few years. Just it's well composed, well put together. And again, this is not me just like touting Audubon. I have plenty of things that I could say that I'm frustrated with Audubon about. But one thing I think they do very well is they're representing, you know, beautiful pictures, you know, and really getting, trying to build the following around conservation, around birds specifically through their imagery. And the magazine is outstanding. And the articles are good. You know, there's been, I think, Florida Scrub Jay, there was a really great piece about that in the last few issues. There's been a great one about shorebirds at large and their migratory feats and challenges. So, you know, that's something else I would encourage you guys to check out. Yeah, this one is actually on saline lakes in tandem with talking about shorebirds. This is a really cool piece that came out in the most recent spring issue. So that's a neat one too. Why is it hard to keep cats indoors? Yeah, here's another. Yeah, so all kinds of content here. Yeah, building safety around window collisions, all kinds of content for you guys to dive into, as well as just appealing images. Now this one, and I'll provide a slide on this later. Actually, let's come back to that. Let's do that later because, yeah, I'll let you navigate back to, sorry to jump around a little bit, but I just thought some of that stuff might be interesting to you guys. Beauty. There we go. Thanks, Andy. And those links, we'll send it. Maybe I'll have Andy send them to you guys to share. So if you're interested. Now, you know, I just wanted to, again, just dwell a little bit on the ethics piece, just because it is, yeah, I think it's worth spending a little time on. And I've certainly been guilty myself. So, you know, when we think about ethics to consider around photography with wildlife, with birds, I'm specifically talking about birds, but a lot of this can apply across the board too. You know, are you too close? Ask yourself that question. Repeatedly ask yourself that question, because it is easy. You want to get close because you want to get that close image. You want to get that detail. Obviously, the closer, oftentimes, the better. But you know, there is a too close, and you know, a lot of people will say that, you know, if you can use a 500 millimeter lens or greater, you know, then that allows you to obviously document some of these birds and still get detail from a distance. That obviously depends on the distance and the camera. So there's a lot of questions there. You know, feeders are awesome. You know, I've seen actually just recently, I think Roger Organ's got a bunch of pictures on from, he had a rose-breasted grosbeak land at his feeder. Very cool, right? So I do feed birds. I do like to photograph birds at my feeders too. You know, some people have beef with feeders and for good reasons. They can be a vessel for disease transmission. And certainly we saw that with the avian flu. And we're continuing to see that flu pop in and out, right? But what was it, 2 years ago that we really saw that, you know, where I basically had to kind of, being an Audubon employee, really encourage people to get their feeders down. You know, and obviously when you're keeping them up, you need to be cleaning them regularly. But that does offer you a window to see birds up close. And oftentimes you can be behind glass in your house photographing a bird. That beautiful bird, Diane, you shared a picture of Daryl's of a evening grosbeak, like on maybe your porch just in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Beautiful detail, really vibrant. Are you behind the glass there? Where are you? Okay. So, you know, great opportunity to get a close look at a bird without disturbing it necessarily. They're obviously there for the energetics of the food too, so they're willing to take a little closer, to take a closer chance. Time of year, obviously that's something to be thinking about. You know, energy is precious. These birds stop over in these locations oftentimes heading somewhere else. Just like we were looking at those ibis, those white-faced ibis out at out Piedra Road. You know, they're feeding to move on, right? So the more that you're pushing them off their feeding grounds, you should ask yourself, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Right? Maybe I should be backing off and photographing them from further away. So that's always a big piece. Especially we were looking at shorebirds a week or two ago, and there was a time where I said to Barry, Barry, you're going to flush those birds if you go any closer. You got to come back here a little bit, right? And so sometimes you got to check one another when you're in a group. Say, okay, you're getting too close, you know? And I think that's important when you can feel comfortable to say that. And so, especially with shorebirds will spook so easily. And you think about a bird that's really putting on weight to continue these long-winded journeys. You know, that's a bird that you shouldn't be pushing off there. You shouldn't be pushing any bird off of a roost or a feeding ground. But you also, you know, there's some birds that you can get closer with. Also, time of year, I took this picture of Hammond's flycatchers on our bird monitoring project, and these are barely fledged birds right here. They're not super gapey in the corner of their beaks, but you can, if you zoom in on that picture, you can see a pretty yellow gape. But they were really cute, you know, and so there I am through these aspen photographing them. And, you know, it wasn't until later that I was like, well, they obviously were very aware that I was there, and they were very close to the nest, and we had, so, you know, I use that example just to say, when you've got birds nesting, obviously be mindful, because again, their energy is precious. Adults are coming and going, and, you know, they're constantly feeding on the go, feeding young. So, the more than you're in their way or in between the nest and the adult birds, you could be creating a problem. Now, oftentimes birds are so high up, that's not as much of an issue, but these guys were only 10 feet off the ground. Let's see, you know, other things, behavior, did the bird move? There's some cues that you can follow. You know, a bird will go into a pre-flight stance. They'll kind of, you know, they'll get tense and they'll be looking at you like this red-tailed hawk was, I think, kind of checking me out a little bit on a Christmas bird count. And it's not necessarily going into that pre-flight stance yet, but I've certainly done that with ferruginous hawks where I think I was just a little too close, you know, and I should have been admittedly back further photographing them from a distance. So they're not feeling that pressure to move on. It's who are we to do that, right? So that's something you need to be asking yourself. Sharing locations. Yeah, you know, this is, you know, sometimes I would say take this with a grain of salt, but like sometimes, you know, it's really, that's how these networks work with, hey, we've got white-faced ibis, up Piedra Road. Somebody, eBird is great for that, right? Somebody wants to go and photograph it, right? Somebody wants to go see, when we had that additional trumpeter swan land, Pinyon Reservoir for a short period of time. Everybody that's, was really likes to photograph birds was out there photographing them over the course of days. And that's really cool, because we're all communicating that, working as a network. And I think that's really fun. And so that piece, is you have to be sensitive with that. Bob Heminger had a yellow-billed cuckoo fly into his backyard 2 years ago. Very rare and threatened bird, right? And hasn't been documented in the area. And initially I was like, man, Bob, maybe you should put it up on eBird, just so that you can document that it was in the area. And then I thought about it more and I was like, maybe you shouldn't, Bob. And so I let him, I was like, maybe because there might be people showing up outside of his house to then look for that yellow-billed cuckoo. So there is an example of, there is an example of, where maybe sometimes it's not worth it to share the location. Now, drones, I don't know how many of you fly drones. Obviously, drones create beautiful images. Evan certainly uses them in certain applications. But around birds, generally it's a no-no, unless it's somebody's flying one out to like a heronry, a rookery, on an island that you otherwise can't keep track of. And they're trying to count, nesting success, fledgling success, from a bird like that. Maybe there's a question, but still that drone is going to look like a predator bird and it's just going to create stress for the birds. Now, I kind of wanted to pose this to you guys, ethical or not. And I'm not going to tell you what it was photographed with until a second, but this is a pretty cool shot that one of our board members from Rockies, who likes to photograph as well up in Wyoming, took a few years ago. A golden eagle standing on a mule deer carcass. And how do you guys think he got this one?
Trail cam.
Yeah, basically the equivalent, right? It was like a GoPro on a small tripod that was nearby. Initially, I thought I remembered him actually planting it in the carcass in the rib cage. That would be pretty sporting. But when I went back and looked and found him, I said, oh, no, I don't think he went to that extent. But people certainly have, and you can get some beautiful pictures of birds that way. Now, how do you guys feel about that? Yeah, Chris. Yeah, question.
Was the shutter triggered independently of the photographer?
Yes. Yep. I think he left
Motion.
it for a period of time from motion trigger.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I don't have any problem with that at all.
Right. So yeah. To me, I feel like, okay, it was pretty ethical. I don't think this eagle is really even recognizing that camera is there, right? It's been feeding. I think he got a lot of pictures of this eagle, which says that it came and went without too much problem. And so he used, a GoPro with a tripod here. Now, same carcass, ethical or not, this is when he first, I think, found it. There's a 3 or 4 year old, a 3-year-old probably bald eagle. So you can start to see the white coming into its head right there. Really mottled looking bird, beautiful picture. Yeah, what's your guess at first look at it? Do you think he's too close or not too close?
Depends on the lens.
Yeah, I think it's okay. The blur in the background looks like it was taken with a pretty long telephoto.
Yep, exactly. So again, I'd say this one's certainly ethical, right? Canon with 500mm lens. So he's on the road. This is probably when he first located it and got intrigued by all the raptors coming and going. So
If I do a lot of shooting out of my vehicle when I'm traveling around, and when you get out to get closer, you invariably spook the whole thing.
Right.
But shooting out of a vehicle is a really convenient blind.
yeah, and, even like I've come across recommendations on taking photographs at Lex, various lesser prairie chickens, greater sage grouse, lesser sage grouse, etc., Gunnison sage grouse. And that's oftentimes, if you're not in a blind, then that's the next best thing, is being in a car, just like you're saying, Chris. And I certainly do the same thing when I'm doing the Christmas bird count. not only are you on the go, but you're also trying to respect that space of the bird from a distance without flushing it.
What
So-
do you think, Adrian? You're the one that gets a lot of these shots.
Yeah, I usually.
Do you
stay-
shoot out of the car?
Yeah, I stay in my car, cause like you said, you can tell as soon as you try to open a door, the bird becomes, does that alert,
Sure.
and you're gonna chase them off, so I'm generally in the car, and then even the car, sometimes, you have to pay attention to where you stop your car, cause you can
Absolutely.
tell when like, they're okay when cars speed past,
Yeah.
but as soon as you start to slow down in your car, you can
That's
see their
right.
behavior change, so you have to kinda,
Which
and
I've
some birds tolerate it more than others.
Mhm.
So
And
you just have to
unfortunately,
watch
the
it.
angle oftentimes you want to be able to get to where you can shoot out of your side window, right? And so oftentimes that's tricky, right? Unless you have some way to manipulate your vehicle and turn into a drive or something like that. But sometimes that's the problem because you're trying to photograph through a dirty front windshield is obviously not ideal. And so oftentimes you end up getting too close. And so you are pressuring the bird a little bit. I've found that I do that myself. When I'm out scouting for the Christmas bird count, I'm looking at raptors. I'm just maybe, sometimes, and I'm staying in the vehicle too, but ultimately sometimes that I think is a question too. How much are you stressing the bird even in a vehicle?
So Chris, Adrian, Keith, when you're shooting out of your car as a blind, are you shooting through the glass or with the window down?
Now are you using a window tripod?
I don't. I always shoot out of an open window.
Okay.
I do not like shooting through another piece of glass. And I use bean bags rather than any kind of tripod. I just put my wife made them for me. You can fill them with beans, dry beans.
Just hang it over the door's edge
Right,
there.
and mine has little like rubber balls, rubber dots on it
Sure.
to give you
Grippy.
a good grab.
Yeah. Nice. I like that.
And it's free.
Right. A little bit of stitching time. Yeah. Same for me, Scott. I usually try and open my windows and shoot through that, Certainly if unless it's just diagnostic and that you're just really just like, oh, what is that bird before it flies away, and trying to zoom out. And maybe you have to go through the front windshield, but yeah, obviously ideal if you can get those windows down. So this one, I found on, I think it was a Cornell site. It's a sandhill crane with a young one right beside it. And there's a photographer, what maybe looks like 12 to 15 feet away from it. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's in, I think, a suburban neighborhood. And so the birds may not be as finicky. And some of you who photograph sandhill cranes, especially over Monte Vista, they tolerate some proximity. I mean, all those people at the crane festival, right? Including myself. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Ethical or not? With what you can see in this image. This is not a lot of information.
In Florida, the sandhills are pretty tame.
And I think that's where this one is.
They'll walk right up to.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean, these birds are eating.
right.
Yeah,
If they were
They're not too
really
stressed.
clustered, then they wouldn't be eating. Eating is kind of a relaxed behavior that
Yeah.
they're not gonna do if they feel threatened, so.
Absolutely.
And he does have a big lens on that tripod, so he is shooting from a distance.
From a distance. So it's maybe it's really hard to maybe read that
Yes,
How
distance.
close
Yeah.
is the other photographer that actually?
Yeah.
And that was my question here, Rob. So they obviously staged this. I think. So yeah, right. Who like how exactly did this go down? I don't know.
Well, that
But
would be, my concern is where's the escape route?
yeah,
If you've got photographers on
both
both
sides.
sides,
Right,
is this bird, if it feels threatened, gonna run out into that road?
right. So I think that's a good question, Adrian. Is another thing is just to think about, because that's what struck me about this image is you've got a bird that's now trapped between two photographers. Like you said, it's feeding but it does have young there. And so it's like, knowing how to mind that situation with the best intent is what you got to rely on. So, I don't know if this was accurate. This is what I found on that. I was just trying to give credit. It was from Garrett Vinn, who had written this piece. And so he was actually going through the ethics of photography. This was on a Cornell site, not Audubon. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So in Monte Vista, like,
Yeah.
I pulled into, one of the southern pull-offs where you can go and observe them, and there's a barrier there. There were a lot of birds right up close to the barrier, and there were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the
Oh.
birds don't respect the appropriate distance.
They keep coming in towards the humans.
Well, we had that happen with wolves in Yellowstone.
Mhm.
It was during the government shutdown, so there were no rangers out there. And the wolves were ignoring all the rules and getting, I don't remember, it's 75 yards or something, whatever it is. We had to pull over the side of the road and let them by. So they were like maybe 30 feet at most,
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, bears too.
but that's their problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have bear
They,
crossing
they don't read.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yellowstone's kind of an exception to the rule of a lot of this stuff, just because you've got such a collision of wild country and populous photographers. I've certainly been in those situations viewing big animals up close. Now, a couple things I just want to share with you guys. I'll race through this last bit, but so this is a podcast I wanted to share with you guys that I've listened to just one or two of these, but pretty cool. Have any of you ever listened to this Impact? No. Well, check it out. You could get it through Spotify. I was able to find it through that, and somebody recommended it to me. And yeah, it's all about conservation photography, and so how to leverage, your imagery into greater causes. So kind of a cool one. This is the head of National Audubon's digital assets management. So I, as an employee, have access to the DAM, the digital access management. And essentially, if I want to look up a picture of a silver buffalo berry plant, I can find a picture. Actually, I found one last week that I'm going to use for our native plants brochure with a flicker on it, eating a berry. That's pretty cool. But so they take birds, but they also take, that's just to say, they take also insect photos. I'm thinking about all your all the butterfly pictures and fritillary and moth photos that you shared with us with the chapter, and some of that stuff could be really cool. They may be interested in some of that, native plants as well. So they're really interested in a lot of that kind of content. You can certainly email me if you want to kind of figure out that rabbit hole, but you can also go straight to Alan Gottlieb if you have some images you think are strong and fitting with maybe what they would be looking for. So I wanted to talk just briefly about our bird monitoring project. I do have a little short video from Herb on here that we can, if we have time, we can share it. But if not, if we need to race ahead, what time would you like to be sharing these other photos? Probably pretty soon, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay. So for those who aren't familiar, we are now 5 years into a community science project locally where we started with a big question around fuels reduction treatments in the area as part of the wildland urban interface. Obviously, our local Forest Service district works hard to keep our houses safe, our community safe, our water resources protected. That's a big piece, right? But we did have people early on saying, and I'm sure many of you have seen some of the fuels reduction treatments. They look pretty striking, and it can be I was up on Reservoir Hill today. I don't know if any of you have been on Reservoir Hill recently, and you can see where they masticated. So it's like a brush hog, and essentially they'll mow the understory, and it's pretty shocking, right? It's a lot of impact on the land. You've got heavy machinery moving in and out of there. And so we really started with a question of, how does that impact bird populations? And so really Herb kind of went to Mountain Studies Institute and the Forest Service District through the San Juan Headwaters Forest Health District, Forest Health Collaborative. It's a hard acronym. And we said, hey, we've got willing volunteers. They also were interested in knowing how these treatments might be impacting birds. They certainly were more willing to dive into it with us, knowing that we were free labor. So thus the project was born. And here we are 6 years. We're getting ready to start back up here in a few weeks. And it is a blast. And essentially what it entails is going out into the field for about 2 to 3 hours is a morning. Rob's involved. A number of you have done this over the years, and we go out. We conduct 6-minute point counts. We're really specifically looking at some of these breeding bird populations, the songbirds specifically. But what do we hear and see in the forest around a given point? We have 3 different treatment kind of areas that we're thinking about. There's areas that have seen prescription fire, there's areas that have seen the mastication, and there's areas that have seen thinning. And so the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is not only to see if you're interested in volunteering for it, but also it is an awesome opportunity to get some great pictures of birds too while you're out doing that. So we've had some beautiful images that have come back out of the project of various species, and Herb now has no shortage of when he goes to put a lot of these presentations together. So in addition to obviously trying to understand the bird community response to those treatments, we're looking to promote a better understanding of the role of fire in ponderosa pine forest ecology. So this has been a big educational experience for a lot of the people in our group who don't know that much about fire regimes on the landscape, the role of fire, etc. So it's been a really fun learning experience to see people's understanding and opinions sometimes shift as they gather more information. Obviously, it's an improvement in birding skills. You're out on the landscape, especially using your ears. We found that we actually use now our participants are identifying birds by ear 65% of the time. Yeah, a good portion of the time, more so than by visual ID. So that takes a little training too, but we're actually doing a class next Wednesday in this room on birding by ear. So, and it's certainly been like a great ability for people to build camaraderie, find common ground, and make friends. So we've had really just a lot of great feedback from the project and retention of volunteers. So again, people want to improve their birding skills. They want to feel a sense of purpose with the data they're collecting. I think that's a beautiful part that really has been an asset to the project. Obviously, it offers exercise and getting out into the forest early in the day. It's a great way to start the day. Like so many of you know from hiking, essentially you're walking or hiking a loop and stopping to do these intermittent 6-minute point counts. I'm not going to go into all these details. I think I've talked over this stuff. If you guys, should we do this?
This video is taking us on quite a journey, describing our citizen science project, highlighting many of our central findings, and drawing attention to how understanding the bird communities in our area is not only important from a scientific and ecological standpoint, but has personal implications as well. So what are the takeaways of this project? First, there are more bird species in our surrounding forests than we can appreciate by incidental viewing of the most common species. Second, the long-term monitoring efforts like ours are important because finding and identifying the many bird species that are less common or rare requires familiarity with an area that comes from repeated and patient visitations. Third, the birds in our forests are important consumers of insects that might otherwise have damaging impacts on the vegetation. Well, that means that conserving bird species richness and diversity is important to forest health. Well, fourth, at least half of the bird species we observed are migratory, spending several months of the year in Central and South America, where the degree of environmental degradation affecting their population declines is not well documented or understood. Fifth, the forests, like those in our area, provide important breeding habitat for most of the bird species we have observed, especially those migratory bird species at high risk of population decline due to changes to the environment across their migratory range. Indeed, far too many of both resident and migratory bird species we observed in our study are exhibiting troubling declines in population numbers, with these negative trends most significant for migratory species. All of our findings underscore the importance of understanding the implications of forest management practices, like wildland fuel reduction treatments and logging practices, to the conservation of bird species whose survival may be threatened by changes to the environment both here and over the extent of their migratory range. Finally, many scientists contend, and I agree, that until we make these issues personal, we will not begin to invest the significant resources and energy necessary to identify and implement actions required to protect, conserve, and restore the natural environment that is essential not only to birds, but to all other components of the biosphere and to the human endeavor as well.
Thanks, Herb.
Can I say a couple things?
Yeah.
So that's 3 minutes out of a 20-minute video that reviews our findings over a 5-year period, which I think are pretty substantive. And this year's video, I've done a video every year, and this year's video focused on making it personal. So there are a number of points in the video where our volunteers, well, talk about how important this project is to them and their personal experiences. We've had over 60 volunteers over the 5 years of the study, 20 each year. And we've had, I think, about a dozen of us who've been involved all 5 years. So I encourage you all, if you're interested, you don't have to be an exceptional birder. We'll take care of that because you'll be out in the field with experienced birders like Keith. I'm still a becoming birder, but I can see movement. That helps. At any rate, let me know, and I'll make sure Andy has maybe you already do have a link to the, anyway, I'll make sure he has a link to it, but it's on my YouTube channel,
We'll put that
Herb's
up too.
Field Notes.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Cool.
back to you, Keith.
Cool. Yeah, and I won't hesitate too much more. I wanted to just give you guys, I'm almost done here. I know we've got some other things to do here. Just wanted to share a couple of engagement points for you. So that the fourth bird monitoring program is the program we just saw a video about. The American Dipper Nest Monitoring, I already mentioned that to you as well. Again, we'll share these links. I'll just send this slide over to Andy so he can share this with you. That is also housed through Women Each Audubon. That's the point of contact is Pat Bremer or Gene Zernheld. Christmas bird count, some of you already contribute to that. Certainly if you're not already, then we'd love to have you. That's a long-standing tradition. We've been doing it in this community for about 14 years, but it's almost 20 years old in its entirety and its duration in the beginning. So ongoing community science. Pike and net. I feel like maybe on one of on your website, the photography club's website, I'd seen maybe some pica pictures or maybe on a Facebook page in the past. But I've been doing this with school groups for the last few years where I go up and take them and we monitor, we designate a plot and we monitor for pica. And I know a lot of you are hikers too. This is basically something you can do while you're out on a hike, and there's actually apps on your phone now. Mountain Studies Institute in Durango is just kind of the local, they kind of house some of the trainings and information. I think there's a training coming up. But it's really something you can do through PicaNet, the actual app on your phone. But it's just really documenting presence of pica. You have to characterize the site the very first time. After that, you're just showing presence or absence of a species. And that's really linked obviously with kind of climate change concerns, making sure that pica are oftentimes indicators. If they're in, just like dippers or stream health indicators, pica are kind of high country health indicators as well. So as the snow, if we run into trouble with snow lows, they will probably preemptively leave an area. So if they're not able to stay warm enough and find the food that they need in those landscapes, then they'll leave. Pinyon Jay inventory, I do really hope to provide a training, probably through the Women Who Audubon group, but I'll make sure that Andy knows about that, about how to do this. It's really how to use this app, but I haven't myself even documented with it yet, but I just learned about this app, Survey 123, And I don't know how many of you know pinyon jays are, they've lost, you can see that number, 83.5% decline between 1967 and 2015. Staggering, right? And obviously that's with the loss of habitat, pinyon juniper habitat. And so we are in an area where you can find pinyon jays. They're really right now trying to figure out oftentimes where pinyon jays are nesting. But we've even had pinyon jays, flying through. We have a project right now where we have acoustic monitors monitoring for hopefully Mexican spotted owls in the HD mountains. But we've had pinyon jays flying through, and we said to the CPW officer, "Hey, we've got pinyon jays in that area." Not that big of a surprise because there's some relic pinyon trees there. But they said that doesn't tell us that much if they're just flying through. So they're really trying to find out where are the nests. So that's something that's also, we need some people out in the landscape photographing and looking for these species. And then I just learned about this. I've known about the Bumblebee Atlas, but I know that the Mountain States, they just actually started a new regional web link, and there's going to be this training. I put the Zoom link, which is impossible for you guys to read probably. Essentially there's a training coming up. Again, I'll send this to Andy for this Bumblebee Atlas opportunity, because I know a lot of you like to photograph insects as well, and that's pretty cool.
Can you send this whole page? Andy?
Absolutely, yeah. And then eBird is, ongoing citizen science all the time for birds specifically. And that's another touch point. Won't linger too long here, but this is, eBird is a great location to not only find species-rich birding locations. This is basically our hotspots in our general area, Navajo State Park being kind of the highest species count, 205 bird species that have been documented there. The San Juan Riverwalk right here in downtown. For our county, 190 species. Really, it's higher than that, I believe. But maybe they've backscaled it. Maybe a couple species were in question, or species have merged. So 190 species documented plus down here downtown. That's pretty excellent, actually. Echo Canyon, the state wildlife area, and so on and so forth. So I use eBird when I go traveling. I'll look and see what birds are in an area, and it's a great way to kind of figure out where do you want to go to look for a species, especially if you're thinking about photography. Fantastic opportunity to locate a species that you're particularly interested in, maybe. And challenge yourself. Go looking for new birds and new locations. There are other resources on there. I won't go into it. You can get rare bird alerts when on your email if you so choose to through eBird as well. Keep in touch. This is how you can locate me. But I'll make sure that Andy has all that and gets it out to you guys. So again, really our social media stuff, if you do that, it's easy to find at Audubon Rockies and through Instagram and Facebook. And that's it from me. Thank you guys.
I just want to say, we are incredibly fortunate to have Keith here in the community. He's young enough and energetic enough, and he interacts with the students with a nurturing attitude. I'm just amazed by what he's able to accomplish. So, send your money to Audubon Rockies and give Keith a raise.
Thanks, Herb. I appreciate that. I did bring you guys some swag over there. If you want a couple things that are on that table, there's only a few left over there, so grab them if you want them. World Migratory Bird Day is actually this Saturday. It's celebrated over the course of this month, basically. But every year they change the art and they have a new theme. And so this year it's protect insects, protect birds. Just, obviously some of the insect numbers are concerning right now. So really trying to bolster insect populations. Obviously birds like that too. So grab a poster if you like. There's some stickers on that table. If I do run, to Herb's point, I run the environmental education program at 4 Mile Ranch for a lot of the youth in the neighborhood, in the region. And this is just, if you're interested in volunteering to lead youth groups in the fall, this is a little brochure about that. And this is just a cool book that I brought that a guy I know, David Showalter, about the sagebrush sea, that I'll put over there as well if you guys want to check out. And there's also some guides to ethical birding. Again, I think a lot of you guys, this is no strange news to you, but if you want to grab one of those, feel free to print them out for you. Okay.
It's the birding by ear event.
It is same time that you guys meet, 6:30. Yep.
Other questions for Keith? Anybody on Zoom have questions?
I've got one.
Mhm.
What is a marmot shop? They sell marmot?
I know.
It's fashion.
It was, yeah, fashion, marmot pelts, all over, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And
the hats,
You should have
too.
seen my marmot hat, my yellow belly marmot hat. No, just kidding. It's outdoor gear company,
It's a brand.
outdoor gear company, a brand, Marmot. So I worked at it was kind of a relic of a gear shop, and it was beautiful. It was in this old like Russian wedding chapel in Berkeley, California, and it was the coolest outdoor shop you could ever imagine. There was just a crazy group of folks that worked in there, and we had legendary climbers and photographers that would from Yosemite Valley that we came through there. They got their shoes resold there, their climbing shoes resold. It was a neat shop, funky, but not what you thought.
Make excellent rain jackets, things like
Yep.
that.
Yep, among others.
I work down the street, the Sierra Design.
Oh yeah, I know right where that is. Right on. That was a little hub, Embryville, Berkeley, Oakland. Yeah, pretty cool.
Other questions? No, thank you, Keith, for a great presentation. Lots of, as you can see, lots of opportunities to get involved with using your nature and landscape photography for a cause, for a lot of different causes, actually. So with that,
Who's up first?
I don't know, I sort of ran.
Is it just a potpourri? You grab one and plug it in? That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, here comes another one. Scott's got some too. Nice.
Yeah, anybody else? Anybody else have a flash drive?
You just gotta have popcorn for these events, Andy. I think.
Really, yeah. Yeah. So May 2024.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's mine. It was so funny because this is just on our little river down by the Yamaguchi Park, but I'm so excited to see this great blue heron on the shore, and we sat across the river watching each other until the bird watcher watching the bird started watching the bird watching another bird swim by as the merganser swam back and forth, and this heron just kept watching him. So it was just kind of funny.
Statuesque.
Yeah, he sat there. We sat across the river and stared at each other for probably a solid hour.
That's awesome.
And then
Oh, wow.
it's not a great picture, but I had so much fun. We were in Hawaii, and I had no idea they had boobies in Hawaii, but this is a red-footed booby, and aptly named because they fly around flashing those red feet in the air. They were pretty far away, so hard to get a great picture, but I just love the red feet as they flew around.
And their feeding technique, I was in Mexico, a couple months back, and blue-footed boobies were feeding there, and it was just, missiles and constantly diving into the water, hitting schools of fish. That was pretty cool.
Neat bird.
Yeah.
That is, I guess it's a Hawaiian black-neck stilt. And I couldn't figure out if are they a subspecies or they have named their own species, but they're considered endangered in Hawaii. And we found this little pond area where there were quite a few of them feeding just at dusk. And
I like the reflection. It's
Yeah.
very neat.
Such a stark, cool image. I like that a lot. It's great. So.
And that's a female northern harrier. I think I took that one over at the Monte Vista National Wildlife Area. She was hunting very carefully nearby.
Awesome.
I just picked out bird ones. since we're talking about
Thematic.
Yeah,
Nice,
no,
nice,
absolutely.
yeah.
Lots of
very nice.
harriers over there. I mean,
Mhm.
we've had days at those refuges that are short, we're doing our shorebird count, but we end up with like 12 harriers, you know,
it.
lots of.
Get to see the male. It's all
Yeah.
about the female.
We got to see some males over there. I don't know if I got any good pictures. But for those who don't know, the males are like gray or white almost. And, these kind of wizard birds.
Yeah.
Rare to see.
And then this was down at Bosque, but I just had fun. This crane caught a mouse, and the other cranes were trying to, yeah, I guess because it's good protein, and so they were kind of chasing him around and got this picture of the little rodent swinging from his beak. He did eventually run off to the side and swallow it really fast.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Cool shot.
Okay, great.
Nice job, Adrian, good,
Yeah.
good to see with the theme.
Yeah, those are great.
Okay. I'm going to go to Liz's photos. Liz?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I went to Argentina and got back a little while ago, and I did this really cool trip with a guide actually. We saw 40 different species of birds, and this is northern Patagonia near Bariloche. These are ashen geese. And they like wandering around on the golf course. It was actually near a golf course there.
Awesome. Nice, Liz.
Very sophisticated looking faces.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm not gonna say this very well, but Arancha, I believe is the name of this tree. Bambi was filmed on Victoria Island, which is in the lake there by Bariloche. And the weird thing about these trees, they're very hard wood, but if you touch them, it's like you're holding a glass of ice water. The bark is just like really cold. They're really neat.
Wow.
But it's a cool forest to hike around in. And that is a long-tailed meadowlark. Again, another one that we saw on our exploring different birds. And this is actually located in the steppe, which is outside of the Bariloche. These are right near the Andes, of course, or in the Andes.
Very cool.
This is a black-faced ibis. And they wandered around all over the place. And this was right on the shore of the lake. They were pretty tame. And this is a taro, and these guys are quite the characters. You wake up 5 in the morning and these things start squawking and they're really loud, but they're just they're funny. They're, they walk around all over. They're not very shy, and they make a lot of racket.
It must be like a plover species, huh? Looks, they're
Resembles
pretty
them.
small.
No, they're definitely bigger than a pigeon.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good sized. Much bigger than a pigeon,
They
actually.
look like somewhere between a pigeon and a plover. Big,
Yeah, they're
flat,
just
short, stubby bill.
yeah, squawk, squawk.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like a great experience.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.
Very cool. Liz, when was it you were down there?
A couple of weeks ago,
Oh,
I left in March and got back a little past April. So I was just going into their fall.
That's mine.
Scott?
Oh, I don't know where this was.
Oh, here.
Oh, well, it's a sunset.
It's got a bird.
Yeah, it does have a bird.
beautiful. Nice warm tones and that.
Ah,
And this is Lake City up there at the big lake up there, and there's this bird and its nest. I think it's an osprey.
It's an
yeah.
osprey.
That's funny.
And, I talk about keeping, this was 600 milliliter, my 600 millimeter lens at about, probably 10,000, maybe a tenth of a mile away or so.
Yeah,
I hand held it and, that's what I got. So
cool.
I did a whole bunch of them, but this was the one that actually showed the bird looking out.
Is that nest pile on top? What's it on top of?
It's on a pole.
Okay, wow.
What is this about?
Yeah.
They've been working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Color Fest, here in Pagosa this,
Cool.
winter. And this is a little part of the lake, Crystal Lake up near, Red Mountain Pass. And, I just thought it had lots of pretty colors this fall, last fall.
Was that when we were there on the Elks trip?
That's right, yeah.
That lake looked beautiful, at that time. Weird colors, and there were moose about too.
Yeah,
Really?
I think
Looks
there's a
moosey.
moose in there, but, he's hidden.
Yeah,
Behind that pine tree.
I'll bet I know where this is.
Yeah, this was enough. I can't remember where all I take these pictures of, but it's a hiking trip that we saw some petroglyphs, so I took a picture.
There's some saguaro.
Saguaros, yeah.
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 I think that's near Tucson.
Okay, great, Gary.
Very cool. Good smattering of content and locations.
Gotta do something with my 3,000 pictures I have.
Yeah.
Some of these guys take 3,000 a day.
Yeah, I know.
That would be Doug, right?
Yeah.
So I went to a painting class workshop in Scottsdale. And at the Scottsdale Community College, they have a little fenced off area where they protect these burrowing owls. So they have big concrete chunks and PVC and.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really cool. And this one just said, hey, take my picture. Good.
I think I've heard of this. Remind me your name?
Kathy.
Kathy. I think I've heard about this place, Kathy. There's in one of our books we featured, because a burrowing owl was like the main character of one of our educational books, two of them actually, but this one in particular left was migrating from sagebrush country, and it stopped over at a place like what you're explaining in Arizona, where they basically used a bunch of riprap to create habitat, nesting habitat for burrowing owls in kind of suburban areas. So sounds
Yeah.
really similar. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a wildlife painting workshop, so we all kind of took turns. Oh, did you hear where this was? So we,
What was that place called? Do you know, like the location where this burrowing owl is?
Scottsdale Community College.
Oh, it's right by the community college. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just the parking lot. It's right there in the parking lot.
Okay.
There's, maybe a rope between you and it.
So maybe that's more common down there for people to do that for burrowing owls. Yeah. That is cool.
Nicely posed.
That's Monte Vista, of course, but it was just an amazing amount of ducks, mallards. I thought they were gonna be the cranes and.
Good color too.
Yeah, very nice lighting.
Yeah.
I was in Mexico in January, and I think it's a crowned heron or a green crowned heron. I don't know, but he was very accommodating.
Yeah.
Very exotic looking, that
Mhm.
crown.
So then after my painting workshop, I'm doing a lot more wildlife paintings, and I went to look for bighorn sheep, and of course found kids or lambs, so I don't know which one, lambs, and then the next one is a mama. and one of the kids.
Very nice.
I just got a mirrorless camera and, I don't know, I didn't think it would be that much different than an SLR, but, some of the settings are just, I think once you figure out how to use it, it does everything on its own, but you have to know how to set it up to do that first.
Always a little bit of a learning curve with the new camera, but
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's very crisp, 'cause that was, out the window.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Very nice.
Like those. That heron does look, I mean, it's not a black crown night heron like we find over in the
No.
valley, but it doesn't look that different. I'm not sure what species that is right off the top of my head though.
I'll bet I know whose these are.
Yeah, I went, to Corsicana, Texas, right near the middle of the totality band. And, I just want to say that I thought I had a solar filter. And it's actually a filter that I used successfully for the annular eclipse. But between the annular eclipse and this eclipse, I got a new telephoto lens that's a lot more powerful. And when I tested it, I realized that I was afraid I was gonna burn my sensor. So I didn't get any of the partial for this eclipse, but I did during the totality. I got a few shots and was pretty pleased with it. So yeah.
Very nice.
This is a bumblebee that I met on the way home on the Chickasaw Nation.
Yeah.
This was a surprise to me. I was in Oklahoma City, and they have this area in they call it Brick City Canal area. And there's this big canal that people put boats on, and there's bars and restaurants and little shops on either side, and some artwork, obviously. So it's in Taos, also on my way home. And then I just thought this tells a story. It's funny.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
It's blinding.
Yeah, it is.
Is that a reflection or is those rays coming out of it?
That's a trip.
Yeah, they're watching the eclipse, so.
Great idea.
Very cool. That's creative.
Thanks, Barbara.
Kathy, a quick glance, maybe it looks like maybe a yellow crown night heron.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it a folder maybe? Or is this you?
No, they're supposed to be on there.
There we go.
There we go.
My
Well,
laptop
in
was
keeping with the
resting.
theme for this evening with several of these are taken during the bird monitoring projects. It's a chipping sparrow.
kind of unique to get a front view like that too, and instead of like a side view looking at you, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of a cool. Straight on.
Dark-eyed Junco. It's a gadwall out on Hatcher Lake.
I like the pose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hatcher, huh?
And a mountain bluebird. Should be seeing quite a few of these around town right now.
Yeah.
It's a western wood peewee, one of those species that's in decline, but actually pretty common out at a couple of our study sites, absent from one of them, so habitat matters.
Do they nest in cliff faces?
Do they nest here?
In cliff faces?
No, these are, they make very nice little cup nests on branches. We've got
Shallow.
several pictures of them nesting and with nestlings and so forth.
Like shallow nests, Chris, like they're
Yeah.
like, sometimes they're only like, they almost look like they're 2 inches deep at the most.
I have photographed some birds while I was out watching for dippers,
Uh-huh.
because there's a lot of birds nesting now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know the birds here in the Rockies. I'm from the Midwest. And I try to get pictures and then go look them up. But some of these, I saw one today. Didn't get a picture of it, but and they're coming out of the cliff faces.
Those are great photos, Herb.
Not swallows. This doesn't matter, but I've got a picture. I ought to bring it.
I
To the
forgot to
club
bring your
sometime.
flash drive.
You know, you can always, save a photo and have Merlin identify the bird in the photo or some of the other ID apps.
What I do a lot is if I have the image that I'm processing on my computer screen, I take my phone, pull up the
Yeah.
Merlin app and take a
Mhm.
photo of the computer screen. And Merlin works with that just fine.
Yep.
Would that work with the picture you have that I gave you to ID?
Yeah, I tried it. That's
You-
how I came up with the SCUA or
Okay.
whatever it is I sent you.
All righty.
Yeah, it's a free app too, Chris.
Yep.
Yep.
Andy had me put it on my phone. I've just never used it.
Give it a try.
Last month, I participated in a club meeting by Zoom. I was on the way back from Illinois where I saw the total eclipse. So when I got home, I put together a composite showing the process of the eclipse from just before it began up to the end of totality. And fortunately, my filter did work.
Yeah.
Very nice
Great.
composite.
That is cool.
That's beautiful.
If
Nice
you're,
diamond ring, you've got a
Yeah.
prominence
There are some
down here.
prominences there, yeah.
Yeah, here.
Prominences show up
Yeah.
better in the more zoom pictures, but if you looked at them close, they were pretty much visible in every picture I took during totality, and even with the diamond ring, which kind of surprised me, there's a prominence at the bottom.
Wow,
Up there.
that is cool.
And one up there too, I believe.
Yeah.
So when you make a composite, without going into the nitty gritty about it, but how do you stitch an image together like that with? all these
Well,
different-
I made them the appropriate size and made I'm not sure the right term, but created a frame or a space for the
Yep.
picture in Photoshop and then pasted them in one by one and moved them where I wanted.
Very
them.
cool, very cool.
So like a collage?
Yeah, it's very basically the same as a collage. This, I've just a couple weeks, actually I left 2 weeks ago today for a storm photography trip in Kansas and Oklahoma. And it wasn't real great from a photography viewpoint, but this was one of the more interesting things I saw. You see that long appendage that kind of comes out the base of the cloud and goes off
Yeah,
toward the ground to the right. What happened was, and I'm not sure I even was fully aware of what was going on at the time I took the picture, but a supercell thunderstorm was moving northeast and it crossed a cold front that was slowly moving to the southwest. And there was a band of low clouds right along the leading edge of the cold front. It was miles and miles, I'd say probably went on for 30 miles. And, when the storm crossed over the front, the updraft of the storm drew that band of clouds up into the base of the storm. And since we had a red-footed movie earlier, I think we needed to have a blue-footed beauty. Just by chance, but
Southern Illinois.
no, this is not in Illinois. This is in the Galapagos Islands.
Oh, wow.
When I lived in Texas, Bastrop, Texas, east of Austin, one year there was a blue-footed booby there,
Really?
and birders from everywhere were coming to see it.
Oh, yeah.
It was quite obviously very unusual.
This one kind of just sat there. The thing about the Galapagos Islands is, most of the wildlife there does not view humans as a threat, so they'll just kind of sit there and let you take their picture.
That explains that dark rock too, right? Is all.
Yeah, that's relatively new lava.
Yeah.
And this is one of my better pictures of birds in flight. This is a actual name of the bird, magnificent frigate bird.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, beauty.
Frigate birds. Where'd you take that?
That was also from Galapagos Islands.
Cool. And
That was taken from our ship.
flying over pretty low, right? Is it? I mean, like.
Well,
far up?
not as low as it looks in that picture because
Good
I think I
detail.
had a 300mm lens and I don't think I did any cropping. It must have been fairly low. It's been quite a few years. I don't really remember, but I guess it must have been low because I don't think I would have cropped out the wings.
Mhm. Wow, cool shot.
And this is a western towhee. At the time I took the picture, I thought it was a rufous-sided towhee, but I since found out that they subdivided
Yeah, they
that into
split
an
that.
eastern and western species, and this is the western version. I took this outside our condo in Santa Fe. They've been nesting there the last couple of years.
Yeah, the spotted towies have been very vocal around here these last few weeks. You guys are probably hearing them doing their mew calls and their songs. The males will get up and sing from the top of the trees right now from the oak brush.
And the song and the call are like totally different.
Totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
Good shot.
Always a welcome spring sound. Yeah, great, real vibrant.
Very nice, John.
And spotted towhee, I guess, is the correct name for the western.
And I've
version.
got spotted at my house just the other day. Just to share that, since we have our weather guy here. So the tornado EF4 that hit, Bardstown, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
also hit Bartlesville, went right over my son's house. He experienced the eye of the tornado. It broke a lot of trees. His house is fine, and my family is fine, but other homes in his neighborhood, the trees fell right on the homes, and so there was a fair amount of damage in Bartlesville, but not like it was in the little community of Barstow. They lost 60 or 70 homes, and I think there was at least one fatality. I don't know if there was more.
By the time it got to Bartlesville, it was merging into a line of storms. And
Yeah,
Kind of
it-
spread it out and weakened it. And so
Yeah.
Bartlesville got lucky in that regard.
Yes, they did. It probably dissipated within about a mile and a half after it passed my son's house. But we were all pretty much on edge.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
All of my bird photos were in the agenda. So this is a photo of our campsite in Valley of the Gods from a trip that some of us took a couple of weeks ago. Early morning. It's also a selfie. You can see my a rare selfie.
Now whereabouts is that again?
This is Valley of the Gods, just west of, it's between Bluff and Mexican Hat, Utah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you turn up the road to
Yeah.
Moki Dugway,
Yeah,
up to
it's-
Cedar Mesa,
Yeah,
it's just
I've
west.
actually probably
Moki
been right
Dug-
by that spot.
Moki Dugway is on the west end, and we were camped on sort of the east.
Yeah, you're right. I
end.
guess it's just east of it.
Yeah.
I've camped out there.
So we were there for several days and did some hikes up on Cedar Mesa and over, and of course we hiked in Butler Wash. But this is just descending to go to one of the ruins that we wanted to see. You know, it's only about a 4 or 5 foot step, but it's big enough that a rope is really helpful, turns out. And this is the ruin, this is Moonhouse Ruin that we were going to visit on that particular day.
And Moonhouse is limited, right? Like you have
Yeah,
to
Moonhouse,
reserve. Or...
yeah, I think they give, I don't know, maybe 20 people a day.
Yeah.
And half of them are done online and half of them are done in person. And even if you do the online, which I think we got 6 people in, out of our group of 12. But you still have to go to the ranger station and have your permit validated.
Right.
But it's a neat ruin. I had been here before in 2009, I guess, but it's still looking quite good. This is another ruin we went to. I talked to Keith about this before we went. This is going into the Citadel, is the name of the ruin. I don't have the picture of the ruin, but just the descent on this slope of slick rock. It's not that bad, really, but you realize that there's several hundred feet down into this canyon at the bottom.
I kept a close eye on my daughter in that exact stretch. I remember.
Oh, bad.
Oh, that's a great show.
Yeah.
This is a working dog in action.
Mhm.
This is our husky and my wife Sue on a late afternoon hike around off-trail hike in Valley of the Gods.
Good steep pitch too. Nice to be
Yeah,
tethered.
right. It was helpful to have a little pull going up that. Okay.
Wow, the sky in that camp picture is really cool too.
Okay. Greg?
That's on at the beginning of the Alpine Loop, right outside of Silverthorne. That's where we camp.
What a clear reflection.
Very nice.
Yeah, good reflection, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's a canyon over by Escalante, and I can't remember where it was. I would never be able to find it again. Somebody took us, we were just hiking out through there, and a guy said, "Hey, you want to find this canyon? Follow me."
Cool. It's really cool to, it's hard to say which edge
Like a
is
space, yeah.
in the foreground.
It's got a face name.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, see that too.
Lots of cool canyons over there.
This is down by Aztec. This is called the Octopus March, but I don't think I think one of the legs broke off here
I
recently.
think you're right, yeah.
That is over by Kodachrome Basin, but it's outside the basin.
There's a coat of
Yeah, that's my grandson, and I just thought, I gotta get a picture of him now, because he looks like he's gonna be a troublemaker. But in 7th or 8th grade.
Probably take after his grandfather.
That's 3 weeks ago. He doesn't even look the same hardly. Oh, and that's
Ashisli Pond?
yeah, the Alien Throne area,
Where is that?
over by the Alien Throne south of.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow.
Very cool, Greg. You wanna lead a field trip to Ashisli Pond?
Yeah, well, it's a bumpy washboardy road, that's all.
Oh, they're all like that then.
Ton of res. I'd rather have one going to the arches down there by Aztec.
Well, we could do that too, and it's not too far to drive. Ah, perfect subject for the
Yeah.
challenge this month, yeah.
So these are mine, and this is, this is kind of indicative of my approach to photography. While everyone else is photographing the action, I'm turned back around looking at the interesting shadows on the steps. This one's called Lunch Lines. My wife and I were at a track meet in Cortez, our first one, and it turned out to be a 7-hour affair. We didn't know that, and we raced out to lunch and raced back, and on the way in, this is the shadows of the railing on the steps leading into Benny's restaurant.
Cool.
I like it.
Yeah. And this is in Cortez. And I don't think I need permission because she's under 18 and my daughter, and so I don't think her complaints would hold up in court, but I call this I think preparation. This is her getting used to the blocks and thinking about it prior to the start of the race.
What distance?
I believe this is the 4x100.
Okay.
And just to plug her and her team, she and her team set 2 different middle school records this year, one in the 4x200, and they actually broke the 4x400 record twice.
Whoa.
During the season, and it was 3 7th graders and 1 8th grader, so.
Wow, 3-7.
I'm excited to see what happens next year.
Oh.
Good job.
Yeah.
Just mature enough to.
Again, they've all slept in my house, so I'm not asking them permission. That's my son on the far right. And this is I kind of like these meta photographs of me photographing a photographer, photographing the subjects. And prior to prom, we all got together at someone's house by the lake. And they're all happy, dressed up, and smiling at someone else, so I sure that.
Good group.
We were studying about plant reproduction, and lilies have such great pollen dusters and stigmas, and we had this in my classroom for about 3 weeks, and I tried all sorts of different approaches to it, and I like this because it takes away the whole idea of the flower and just gets all the different parts in the shadow, and it's and even the texture of the concrete, the painted concrete block wall in the background. This is late afternoon sun on the lily.
It's a Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yeah.
I love the shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, nicely done.
My daughter is
Get out of the way.
again, and her 2 pigs are named Pebbles and Bam Bam. And I don't think she quite knew the reference suggested, but this is in our driveway, and it's a joyous little piglet trotting towards me.
I'm sure he's happy
And
now.
Further reason why I don't eat the pork that comes from them.
Nice, Scott.
Great, Scott.
And Keith, thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening to people speak about something about which they're passionate. And I particularly learned something by talking about the ethics of photographing birds. So thank you for coming.
Yep.
Thanks for coming out.
Okay, did I get everybody's flash drive? Okay, well, thanks again to Keith for, as Scott said, a great presentation and a very passionate presentation. And thanks to everybody for participating tonight. Yep.
Bright light. Nice, that's a fun tradition. Sharing photos.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a photo club otherwise.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's
Mandatory.
Almost.
Yeah.